enforcement and safety to the, out to the,
You wanna move mine to the
Conservation
bottom?
What?
So that,
and let's do that, let's move the public hearing for the, secondary roads budget and 5-year construction program to the end of the regular agenda, so that if anybody does not want to, sit through that, you're more than welcome.
you are all welcome to attend.
You are all, everyone's always welcome to attend, but whenever it starts, it's what's.
Be riveting, I'm sure.
It will be.
Are there any other changes to the tentative agenda? Okay, we have an agenda. Meet with department heads and elected officials. Sarah Doty, Des Moines County Auditor.
Good morning. Just business as usual. Nothing new to report at this time.
Thanks, Sarah. Colin Gerst, IT.
Good morning, just keep busy like always, nothing really new to report, so.
Thanks, Colin. Sheriff Kevin Glendenning.
Good morning. No major news from us. We're busy as everyone else is, but not a whole lot going on for the board. There's a side-by-side event, the north end of the county on Saturday, so they'll be from Minneapolis and I think up into the Yarmouth area, then north into Louisa County and back over to Oakville. So you'll see a lot of side-by-sides, I think, this Saturday during the day, but that is a scheduled event. Other than that, our jail's at 92 this morning, but we had 7 in intake. Looks like a few of those will be held. Right now, we're at 7 out of county, so that number's been pretty happy here. But we're also seeing that number build up for waiting on the residential facility. We're at 5, and conversation with them last week said like a 30 to 60 day wait, which is not good because that number will continue to climb. So we'll keep an eye on that, push forward.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Yep.
Krista Pogum, I'm having a hard time this morning. Krista Pogum, Local Health.
Good morning. The Board of Health met last week for their monthly meeting, and we discussed the public health building update, and that is coming along nicely. Kind of gave them the updates about the goal for the roof to be finished, and then the stone to be put in, and they are framing up the inside of the building. So also discussed the vaping ordinance, which they previously brought to the board. I know that's one of those things that they continue to pursue, but one of the things they're considering is speaking to the city about maybe putting some signage, thanking people for not vaping or smoking at the playground and at the ballparks. So that is something they're gonna approach the city about and see if they're interested in that. Also discussed about the new lead testing that'll be coming. We have a very low percentage of children that should be less lead tested in our county that are getting the lead testing, which that has a long-term effect, cognitive effect. So public health will start doing lead testing starting next month, right along in our immunization clinics, and it'll be offered to our people that come in for immunizations at no charge. So that meet the criteria according to the lead program from the state. They also got an environmental health update from Russ, which is our subcontract. And then also received the report from the Iowa State ADA Surveillance Program, which is where we monitor for the mosquitoes. We're looking for that Aedes albopictus mosquito, and we continue to have that in our county as we have in the past.
Could you pronounce that again?
Aedes albopictus.
Thank you.
And so, they are found in 8 counties in the state of Iowa, including Lee County, Louisa County, Johnson County, as well as our county, so neighboring counties around as well. They have, this year, as we did our testing, they had decreased the number of traps that we use. But we continue to have a high number of those mosquitoes in our county, and those are the mosquitoes that can carry Zika. We have not had any that have been identified carrying Zika, and we've also not had a case of Zika in our county, or actually in the state. The only case there was one that was, had been traveling, and that was many years ago. So, but we continue that monitoring. And I think that's all I have.
Thanks, Krista. Rodney Bleasner, Maintenance.
Good morning. We've got the assessment from the Iowa Department of Homeland Security. Came and did the assessment. We gave you guys all a copy of that assessment, so take a look at that. If you have any questions, let me know. The state, I'll go back to that. We had a pretty good assessment. There's obviously always things to work on, so overall it was pretty good, but we do have a few things to look at and try and make better. So there's always something better to do there. We had the state elevator inspector here last week, there were no issues, so everything went well there. Also, the front, we just unlocked the doors again this morning, so they got the, right in front of the steps poured yesterday. Got it all open back up this morning, so everybody can start using the front door again. They're still doing some work across in front of the sheriff's office, so they were hoping to have that all buttoned up by the end of the week. So whether we're having now may push that back a little bit, but I still think they're trying to push to get it done by the end of this week, so. Hopefully that'll all be done here very soon. But we'll keep the back doors open probably till the end of the week, just cause a lot of people I think are kinda, used to going, or, you know, word's gotten out now and more people are using that, so we'll give them the rest of the week, we'll keep the back open, the front open, and then probably lock that back door again starting next week. Other than that, just staying busy, we have that work session.
What's that trench for in front of the sheriff's door?
Just a drain,
For what?
drain,
That's a drainage?
yeah.
Okay.
Put like a plastic drain in there this morning, it looked like.
Yeah, it goes from that, what do you call it, the, not flower box, but the,
Intake?
the trees and stuff.
I think it's like a
The box
built-in
out for the
gutter
landscape.
almost.
Yeah, the landscaping box they have, there's a drain in there, and it goes out with that as well. Can't think of the word right hand.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Thanks, Rodney. Jared Lasser, land use.
Just keeping busy as usual. We have one agenda item today. I think we'll probably have one each of the next couple of weeks. There is the one preliminary plat that was a public hearing with the zoning commission early last week. That's gonna be a little more towards the middle of the month here, just because to get it to line up with the city of Burlington's review schedule, since it's within their 2 mile. So apart from that, I don't have anything else to report.
Thank you. Chris Lee, Conservation.
Good morning. So a couple things, we are fully moved out of our office. We still have some stuff we gotta get out. I think we're on track to, since it is raining, we're on track to probably be fully out by the end of this week, so for your work session today. You can have it, I think, probably towards the end of the week. We got just we got a big load of stuff out of there yesterday. We probably just have 1.5 carloads of stuff left to grab, and then kind of do the final cleaning, so. We are fully moved into the nature center. Big thanks to Colin and his team, and Rodney and his team for helping us get all set up technologically and get the big furniture stuff moved, the file cabinets and things. Without Rodney's crew and those trucks, man, that would have been a much bigger lift for us. So really appreciate their help in making that happen. So we are fully operating out of the nature center now, so anybody that's looking to interact with the conservation department needs to come to Starscape Nature Center. Tomorrow is our board meeting. It will be at the Nature Center. So all of our board meetings from now on will be at the Nature Center. And then Thursday is the Partners for Conservation Foundation banquet that we're having at Barn on the Ridge. So tickets are still available for that. If you want to get those online at mycountyparks.com, or you can get a hold of us and we can get you your tickets for that. And then just the last thing, I heard about Bob's passing yesterday, and what a hole that's going to leave in this place and in this community. We all, as public officials, have dealt with a lot of people from the press, and that guy was something else. What a hole that's going to leave in this community. My heart just breaks for those of us that knew him, for his family and friends, and just this community as a whole. Man, that's a tragedy. So just want to give my respects to those that knew him and knew him well.
Thank you, Chris. Janelle Nally Long, Westmoreland County Treasurer.
Good morning. We're keeping busy like everyone else. Nothing new to report.
Thank you, Janelle. Kent Hine, Mental Health Agency of Southeast Florida.
Yeah, we had a team meeting yesterday over Zoom, and Brian mentioned that the House and the Senate both have new bill numbers for our mental health, behavioral health changes. So Senate File 2420 and House File 2673 are those bills. One's 95 pages, one's 101 pages. Nobody knows what's in them exactly yet, but I just heard that they came out, so, we asked Ryan, did you hear anything about them? And, she said one of them added some core services back in, cause the previous didn't tell us what the state was going to have these districts do. And it just said that the state plan would come out that would tell all that stuff. There's no timeline changes that Ryan knew of, so the regions will still be ending July 1st, 2025. The Senate side talked about when the ASOs that will run the districts will be known, will be in December. So in December, we should find out who's chosen to run the districts. The district map is supposed to be complete by August 1st was in one of them, so we should find out, cause there's been talk about, there's a district map that came out, but they said that may be changed. So by August 1st, we should know what the district maps are gonna be. And then the RFP, people will be, submitting to the RFPs in October and November. And HHS should announce the district leaders by December, so by the end of the year, we'll know a lot more about the districts, but it's still a work in progress. That's all I've heard lately.
Thank you, Kid.
Yeah.
Angie Vaughn, safety.
Good morning. We don't really have a lot to add. We have a work session today, so that's kind of the big topic for right now. Just keep them busy.
Thank you, Angie. Shannon Prado, emergency management.
I'm the same as Angie, not a whole lot to add, but, we do have the work session today about the move, so.
Thank you. Brian Carter, Moines County engineer.
Good morning. A couple quick things to mention. I did meet with the Danville City Council last night, just to start the discussion of if they want to, have asphalt put on their section of Highway 34, where we're looking, obviously, at doing an asphalt job on all of Old 34 in that area. So, I think they'll probably participate, but I gave them a rough estimate, and they're asked if they could have a couple weeks and get back to me, and I said that's no problem. So, I think, well, I'm guessing that they'll participate. We'll be working on an agreement and work on from there. I'm sure that'll go just fine, but, and then I would mention that the subcontractor came in on the 2 ARPA bridges and got the trees that had to be taken down before the deadline of April 1st. So there was a little activity on those, but, that'll come to a halt now and wait till later. And then, the contractor that's going to work on, the hill on Golf Course Road was hoping that their subcontractor could start next week. Subcontractor was non-committal, but, they're hoping either next week or the week after, so I wish I could sit here and tell you for sure when it was gonna start, but there's a chance that sometime next week that hill could go closed and that work can start. I sent out some informational letters to the, I guess the landowners most closely impacted to give them a heads up. We're gonna send out a little bit more broad letters just to some of the more regional, local landowners that just, so they know that road's gonna go closed. As with anything like that, there's gonna be folks that don't know till it goes closed. I mean, we'll do a press release, but you just don't catch everybody, so, feel free to pass it on to anybody you think that down that area that might be impacted, but I'm sure a fair number of people will come across it whenever that day happens and realize that their route's gonna change, for a little while. I would probably ballpark around 5 weeks. That could certainly change depending on weather, so, anyway, that will be coming up sooner and later from the sounds of it, and I'll keep you guys up to date as I know more. Otherwise, I've got plenty of stuff later on.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
I think I missed anybody. I'm sure I'm out of order. I'm also sure that Bob wouldn't care. The people in this room lost a friend.
Yeah.
I knew Bob for 60 years, and he responded to the people in this room. So, I don't think he'd mind if I told you that he always reminded me of Keith Richards, the seemingly immortal Rolling Stones guitarist. But apparently I was wrong, and anyway, we will miss Bob.
We will truly miss Bob.
Correspondence. I have none. We will proceed to discuss.
One thing I would like to know though, the Beacon put an article out and said that you had competed for class clown.
I saw that.
We were,
Who won?
I don't remember who won, but neither one of us were very mature even for high school kids.
Or for 74-year-old adults.
As far as that goes. So, we have accounts payable claims in the amount of $870,000. $870,432.01.
Move to approve.
Sarah?
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. We have payroll reimbursement claims in the amount of $308.78.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell.
Yes.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. Okay, we have resolution 2024-20, the final plat for the Ord subdivision. I'll believe this would be you, Jared.
It's a 2-lot subdivision. It's located off of Beaverdale Road, just north of Flint Bottom Road. Pretty simple though. All we're really looking at doing here, we have 2 houses near one another. One that the subdivider currently lives in, and the other one was their parents' former residence, since deceased. So basically what they're looking to do is split off that north house to be sold separately from the surrounding farm ground, because it's all currently one big property on both sides of Beaverdale. So that will create a 1.5 acre lot. And then in addition, the property with the other house that the subdivider lives in, that's lot 1, which was surveyed at about 8 acres. And that was expanded to include some ag buildings that are currently on the same lot as the north house. So initially we had a township trustee observe that they were concerned that there was going to be shared access that wasn't included on an easement. So in investigating that further, we were able to confirm that that was just the result of that person looking at the map that I had sent out that was kind of hard to tell from that scale where exactly the driveway was. So I've been able to confirm that the driveway actually is very close to the lot line, but it is fully contained within lot 2. So each of these lots will have their own separate access, will not rely on an easement through another lot. And that includes the farm field to the north. That's what's left over from that property that was surveyed. Also those ag buildings right now are served by a driveway on lot 2, but it's basically the driveway for the other house is right on the other side, and so the intention there is to connect that one over to that driveway going forward, so that each of these lots is self-contained. So with that, I think that no other major concerns apart from that. So I can confirm that this subdivision is entirely consistent with the subdivision ordinance. So couldn't resist, and I'm sure Bob would appreciate that kind of humor. So recommend approval.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. Thank you, Jared. We'll get those signed after that meeting. Okay, we have a resignation from the Des Moines County Board of Review. Please accept my resignation from the Des Moines County Board of Review effective January 30th, 2024. I've enjoyed working with you, the others in the office, and Barbara and Bob, but I feel it's time for me to leave. I'm very confident in Steve Stoller's ability as my replacement. Thank you, Lee Robertson.
approve?
Sarah?
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes. We have an appointment to the Des Moines County Board of Review. I'm requesting that I may be allowed to take the position on the Des Moines County Board of Review that is being vacated by Lee Robertson. I believe I have a basic understanding of the board and will try to fulfill the duties of the position in a fair and responsible way. Thank you, Steve Stoller.
Motion to approve. Second?
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes.
And thanks, Steve. It's hard to find people to serve on some of these committees. We really appreciate that. He's a good man.
Okay, with the demotion of the secondary roads budget, we'll move to the personnel actions. We have two for the sheriff's office. We have Colton Atkins anniversary, 5-year anniversary. Previous rate was $67,282.72. The new rate is $69,469.41. And Tom Sykes, the deputy, 5-year anniversary. Previous rate was $67,282.72. The new rate is $69,469.41.
Motion to approve. Second?
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes. Doesn't seem like they've been here that long, does it?
5 years goes by fast, doesn't it?
Yeah. And we have 3 personnel actions for the Correctional Center. We have Rita Forkworth, cook's assistant, an anniversary. Previous rate was $10.98 an hour. The new rate is $12.07 an hour. We have Sierra Kelly, 12-month increase. The previous rate was $45,998.45. The new rate is $47,160.80. And John Williams, transport officer, a new hire, at the rate of $20.52 an hour.
Move to approve all 3. Second?
Sarah?
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes. We have a report from Veterans Affairs for the month of March 2024. This report will be on file at the auditor's office and available for public review at your convenience. And we have minutes from the regular meeting of March 26th, 2024.
Motion to approve. Second?
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes. Is there any other business?
I have none.
This would be a good time to talk to emergency management and safety about their upcoming move. One of you gentleladies would like to take the lead on this.
Well, we did go out and look at the building yesterday, kind of check some things out. I think there's only a few things that really need to be done before we move in. Things that would make it easier for them to get done without us being there. So the flooring and the 2 doors are probably the
Would you
two.
excuse me just for a second? I should probably make this clear for the press. Well, I apologize, it was a work session to discuss it. Presently, safety is located in Berlin City Hall. Emergency management is located across the street in the sheriff's office. They are going to move to the conservation building out by secondary roads because conservation's office is moving to Stars Cave. That will free up a little room for the sheriff's office. It will give those two agencies a little more room in their own location. And any sort of a building or a house that nobody's in ages really, really quickly. So I'm sure this will create a little additional work for Rodney. And did Cheryl talk to you about?
She actually called me, yeah,
Did she?
because now, emergency management, of course, is, you are the county's the fiscal agent for them.
But the fiscal agent, but they're still a 29C, they're their own entity.
Oh, okay.
And they have their own insurance.
Oh, okay, yeah, I knew that. And then us, she called because she said, Colin, I touched base with Colin a little bit about the computers, because we're going from a city computer system to a county system, and that's gonna give us a few challenges until we get things worked out. And all of it's gonna have a few challenges until we get things done, but, so Cheryl had talked to me and she said, are we now taking over as your fiscal agent? It's like, no, the city of Burlington will still be my fiscal agent. So those things won't have to change, and I don't wanna add any more work to someone else.
And her concern is, as the budget director, is what some of those cost which line item, because we don't have a line item in the
Right.
county now. So whether she creates one or how it does, but before an auditor comes in here and says, nope, that's the wrong line item. So as long as she's working on that.
Yeah, and like anything like Colin, you know, any work he does, he'll get me an invoice, I'll pay it through
Yeah.
the means of going through the city and paying it and covering it, so.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's a lot of little details like that to work out. I think talking to everyone, it doesn't sound like it's gonna be anything major, just a little bit of timing to, you know, kinda get things adjusted.
Okay.
And I'm sure we'll still have a lot of visitors, Chris and I talked, and, we'll probably still have a lot of conservation visitors for a little while, and mail coming in from him, and I'm sure I'll be getting mail at City Hall still. So there'll be some running around, checking on things, and kinda making sure everything gets covered.
And I apologize to the press for, we moved it around. It
Bob
didn't occur to me.
would be giving you a
Bob
hard
would've-
time about.
Yes, he would have. He would have sighed. So anyway,
Yeah, I think, looking at everything, I think that we've kinda got a good game plan in place. I mean, Colin and I probably need to sit down and have deeper discussions. There is one program that we have, and I know everything's going cloud-based, and I get that, but we have a program that keeps all of our incidents, accidents, all the details on it in our computer. It's not cloud-based, and I kinda like that, because whether the world's as safe as it can be or not, it's still information that I hold very, workers' comp and HIPAA don't apply, they're two separate things, but it's still something I keep very close and don't want information getting out, but we're kinda looking at if we can move that system, or is that going to be a situation where now we do have to go cloud-based and start paying an annual fee. I mean, they don't necessarily want things just on a computer, you know, then they can't make money off of it year and year and year. But it's got a lot of different information, a lot of detailed information for a lot of years that we need to be able to keep collected. And we do, I know there's regulations on when things stop, but there's still times where, you know, fire department will call and say, okay, in the last 20 years, how many of these issues have we had, and I can easily get that, or Denita can easily pull that information out of that system, so. Things like that, I mean, those are gonna be some challenges, so we'll sit down and kinda dig a little deeper and see what we need to do and get all that going.
Shannon, anything you'd like to add?
Well, I'm just talking with Rodney about, like, just making sure that there's enough money in the budget, like, for utilities, who's gonna pay utilities, just some, like Angie said, some things to iron out before making that move.
Yeah, and that won't be, because you're funded through general supplemental. So anyway, and that's a county levy. So the biggest thing would be maybe if we needed to have a budget amendment to move something from one account to the other, but I don't foresee that being a problem, but
Okay.
it's just, because I don't foresee that being a problem. But I'm sure if I'm wrong, Cheryl will point it out.
And I sent Rodney my wish list of items, so, like Angie said, there's a few that need to be done before we move in, and then my wish list.
Yeah, there's some drainage issues and some other things that kinda need to be addressed, but
What about the
those are
snake?
things they can do without it.
Some of the snakes, that's why we need doors.
That's, so,
I knew
so
that
I
was
will
in
tell
there.
you, I will be the first one going into the office in the morning. Snakes do not scare me, I'll pick him up and move him outside. But if one of these girls go in there and I'm off or on vacation,
Yeah.
a snake's in there, I might be coming home to an empty office.
You'll probably be back in the sheriff's department.
Isn't it a
If you get a
conservation
call,
snake?
Kevin.
Wouldn't you take that with you?
Well, yeah, you could. We ran out of room in our animal display at the nature center, so we're gonna have to leave a
I'm
couple
confident he
behind
would,
in
he
the
would
nest.
love it. Out at Star's Cave.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one thing I don't deal with is snakes, so we're gonna have to get rid of that before we move in.
The one emergency we will
Yeah, please
subcontract out.
don't call me for snakes.
Since Brian's closer, I volunteer him.
Well, and you know what, he's not far away, that may happen if I'm not there.
I'll be
Brian,
crying
you ready?
Brian.
Send one of your guys over.
Just bring one of your dogs down.
We have plenty of places for them to hide out back.
Ah.
So yeah, so hopefully we'll get all these things ironed out and.
And those are the two big things, is the flooring, cause, you know, while everything's out, that's the only time to do that. And then those two side doors, the front door's fine, but the two side doors are really in bad shape. Get those fixed and then we can get moved in, and as needed, we can take care of the other things, so.
Thank you.
I will make a little comment that the wiring out in that building is kind of old and not great either, so.
It's-
So getting perhaps that, updated. I don't know if we, I don't have the budget to do it right now, but maybe next year, fiscal year, something down the road would be preferable, so.
There were some concerns about the, cameras too.
Yeah, it's on it's got an old Luxon DVR camera out there that was a hand-me-down from the jail from like 20 years ago, so.
Oh, okay, so it really is,
Yeah.
okay.
But I don't know, it's something we could look at down the road, so. But yeah, it's old. I'm surprised it hasn't died yet. I'm really shocked it's lived this long. It's one of those systems that just refuses to die.
Well, after being at the jail, this is my duty.
Yeah, probably.
Thank you, Colin.
I think that, you're gonna see more business out there at Star's Cave than from local people around here. I'm glad to see that you did move there.
Yep.
And, that's really, really great.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be neat in that, Jeff and I will finally kind of be in one of our parks and kind of seeing, the reason what we do every day. It's not without a shared challenges. We were, in there on Friday, I think it was Friday, there was a herd of preschoolers in there up on the second floor. And it did sound like a herd too, of them just running around, and you can hear that right through the floors. And so there will be times where it's gonna be difficult to take a phone call or do a Zoom meeting, but, that's all right, I'll just go out on the trail or something. So, but no, it's gonna be good. We are already in the process of writing some grants to do some further upgrades for ADA accessibility. So we're gonna be putting in some grants to improve the sidewalks around there and get the sidewalk connected out to parking, to better parking there, and then connected to the trail and shelter house, so, yeah.
Rodney, anything to add?
No, just, some of those things, like say, we gotta work out with like utilities and, just some of the improvement things that we need to do, where that money's coming from and whatnot, but, Other than that, just told them to kind of get a list of, you know, kind of what they would like, and then we'll just go through and prioritize that and get things done that we can get done now and push some of them off till later.
Thanks, Rodney.
That's about all I have, I think.
Any further discussion?
I
We're good.
think that's it.
Back to the original agenda. Future agenda items.
Shannon, drive careful.
Take care. Committee report.
I had a executive meeting out at regional planning, and we went over some of the bylaws and everything, and we're gonna present them to the next meeting or two, present them to the full board. And we had a full board meeting and went over. Everything seems to be running pretty good out there. Jared's doing a good job, and so that's about it, what I had last week.
Okay. The only meeting I had was, Krista mentioned, was the public health construction meeting, and like she said, the interior walls are framed up. They're in the process still, they're roughing in the utilities, the plumbing and electrical, which is putting the piping and the conduit in place, and stuff need to be done before you can put the drywall in. And the finishes, the brick was supposed to start this week. I suppose it depends on the weather. And, they're moving right along now, so we're excited about that. That's all I have. Public input. If anybody from the public would like to address the board, you may call 319-753-8203, extension 4. That's 319-753-8203, extension 4. Or you can email the Board of Supervisors at board@dmcounty.com. That's BOARD@dmcounty.com. We will give you a couple minutes to initiate that call or email. And in the meantime, is there any comments or questions from those in attendance? Tracy, this is where the Hawkeye usually steps in.
With a crazy question, by the
I
way.
do have a question, actually, and it's about an agenda item, your appointment to the Board of Review. Does the county have a process for that, or is it usual for the outgoing member to endorse someone to take that spot?
They usually.
who they can get.
Pretty much that's how it is. It's tough to find anybody qualified. The board review works, do you know what the board review does?
Yes.
Okay. The board review works through the assessor's office. So the assessor kind of takes that care of that. He knows people, and they're aware, and they've talked to Steve Stoller before, so that would,
That's where
not
the
something that we
recommendation
come
actually
looking for.
comes
That's
from, is from their
exactly.
assessor's office.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
So I could have share a little Bob story here from last December. We had our regional planning. We had our 50th anniversary celebration out at our office, and I think I actually mentioned it here at the meeting beforehand when Bob was here, and then so he showed up there with the photographer, and we were kind of just chatting there with another colleague of mine at regional planning, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he spots his photographer is taking like photos of the room, and he ducks behind me to try to get out of the shot. And so in the final article, one of the photos you can see I'm kind of standing like this and smiling, and it looks like who am I? I'm not even talking to anybody. I look crazy, but that's why, because he's hiding behind me in that photo. So yeah, I'll always remember stuff like that.
We didn't graduate together.
It's kind of surprising that he ducked from the limelight.
That is surprising.
That's the news right there.
In 1967, or in that age, it was a kind of a high school custom. We went to another high school, and you paint VHS 67. Well, we whitewashed Notre Dame, those concrete pillars over the the gym, you have to go down, you know, the supports. So, one of the young men that was with us, as soon as the police asked him, he promptly spilled his guts. They brought the rest of us in, and, as I recall, Bob got to graduate. I didn't, part of the, we had to do a number of things, but one of them was, issue some sort of an apology. And that was my stubborn face. And so I picked up my diploma later that summer. And, but it wasn't Bob that ratted this out. I think our 2 minutes are up.
2 minutes ago.
Okay. With an I word, well, wait, we've got a,
Yeah, we're not
public
adjourned yet.
hearing.
Don't be
for the-
adjourning.
For the, then, anybody wants to leave. Tracy, this might be your opportunity.
For a story? No.
Well,
Okay.
I don't know whether it's a story or not, but it'll be an experience. So, I need a motion to
You're gonna
open.
stay? Are you nuts? I never leave when a public official says you should go now.
Motion to order
Good
a
idea.
public hearing for the 2025 DOT secondary road budget and 5-year road plan.
Second. Sarah?
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Tom Brokaw?
Yes.
This is your cue.
Have fun with that, Brian.
Yep.
We're behind you all the way.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
okay.
We're supporting you, bud.
You're gonna need Brian's phone number because if you stay, you're gonna get a lot of questions to ask him later on.
She'll be asleep.
fairly quickly, so Tracy, you just gotta butt in,
I will,
okay?
yeah, I see
It's,
that.
Cause
I'm
I've done this for so long that.
So I-
We're-
fit right in.
We're pretty informal, so if you've ever got a question, typically you just,
I appreciate that.
I'll fly by, or I'll use some terminology that won't make any sense, or maybe it will. I know you were at regional planning and you may have heard some of the stuff, and so.
Yeah,
So just, please don't hesitate and just jump in, and that way we address whatever you got for
okay,
questions.
I
So,
appreciate that, thank you.
So we'll just start out, well, page 2, but it's, so the one you guys have is all color copy. I'll remind you, the one you're gonna sign is not, because it's state software, it's not ours. So Becky actually takes the state software one and converts it over to a spreadsheet so that we can make it colored, so that you guys can follow along a little bit better. The colors do coordinate to the map. Yet again, I'm gonna give credit to Becky and to Devin. The aesthetics of all this is all because of them and nothing to do with me.
there should be a map. Okay.
Should be attached to the back of it.
Pull it out.
And if you want a bigger map, I think I have a couple bigger maps, the copies of bigger maps.
I don't, but is there any way I can get this electronically?
Yeah.
Alright, that'd be, cause this might be something we might use graphically.
I can send it to you, or when, before you leave, give me your email or something,
Okay.
and I can send you a
Yeah, I
PDF of
know,
it.
they have not sprung for business cards for
No
me,
big deal.
so I'll
No
just
big deal.
take right.
I'll just have you write down on something, and then I'll
Okay.
have it, I can have Becky send it to you.
Perfect, thank you.
So they are color coordinates when I'm going, so every year has a different color, and you can kinda just, so if you look at the map and you're like, what is that, at least you can look at the color and get you to the year, kind of a thing.
So we're red for 2025?
Yes, so, so we'll start right off. While they're separate for bidded, or for bid projects, the very first one being, DMC Highway 99, and that's an asphalt overlay. HMA is the current day, acronym for asphalt, basically. Asphalt overlay. And then, of course, DMC Highway 34, also an asphalt overlay. So I'm gonna talk about both separately, but there's a reason we're bidding them more or less at the same time. There's also a reason why they're not just one project.
You might.
It's awfully early, Jim.
I know you might explain to Tracy that is $3,800,000.
Yeah, yeah,
That was
so,
gonna be my
Uh,
next
yeah,
question,
well,
that's millions, right?
Yeah.
yes, it is million.
Wouldn't that be?
You gotta
nice?
take it times 1,000 to get the actual dollar amount. Again, state software,
Right.
not our world there. So if you scroll across, you can see there's funding sources there. So we're estimating, now these are all estimates, these projects haven't been bid yet. So the Highway 99 one it's 11 to 11 and a half miles long. I mean, it's a long project, it's a big project for us. 3.8 million is the estimate on it. As you can see, roughly 1.8 of that is federal aid, which is the STBG funds that we ultimately apply for and then funnel through the region, I guess, as far as paperwork wise, I should say. And then the balance of that would made up of farm to market funds, which is about 2 million, and that number will move. I mean, the cost of the project will move also. I mean, that's just the nature of construction. But the reason these two projects aren't tied together, because I would rather them either be one big project or have them tied together when we bid. The reason they're not is because if I tie the Highway 34 project to the 99 project, then I federalize the entire thing. And I don't want the extra hoops of the federal for the entire thing. So we'll just bid them in the same letting. And I mean, let's face it, if we do get multiple asphalt contractors, when they bid projects like that, once they figure their cost of asphalt, they use the same price in both projects. So we'll actually bid these in the same letting, but they'll be two separate projects. The second project is Highway 34, or Old Highway 34, or DMC Highway 34 is our official name in the county. And going way back, the reason you see DMC Highway 34, that was my idea way back when, working with Austin, or it wasn't Austin back then, it probably was Matt Warner way back then. When we took these roads over, because both of these roads were DOT roads, I'll remind you, these were not county roads until 2002 or 2003, right in that area.
They were gifts.
Yes, there were gifts that keep on giving. Now, 99 was a true gift, that was when they forced the roads onto us. 34 was a negotiated gift, basically, you want us to build a new 4-lane, you're gonna take this road. So they're two different kinds of gifts. In the end, we didn't get a choice in really either of them. So, Highway 34, Old Highway 34 is estimated, as you can see, at 2.7. That's probably the roughest of both estimates. Devon's been focused on the design plans for Highway 99 at the moment, because with being federal aid in them, they have an earlier time frame for getting stuff turned in. Whereas there's a little more flexibility on the farm to market, on the Highway 34, because it only has farm to market funds in it. So that estimate will fluctuate as we move forward. But right now in here, it's 2.7 million. Hopefully that's the max, and I'm hoping to see it come down. In fact, I may have to tweak the project a little bit to bring it down, where we have all the rules in the world to play by that you guys rarely see, but that we manage behind the scenes. And you know, we've been saving farm to market money for this, but we don't have bottomless farm to market funding, and so we will spend right up against our limit. And if I feel like we're uncomfortably tight against our limit, I may scale back, not so much length, but amount, or what we do on the project to make sure that we're within the bounds that we need to be in. So, so that'll all happen, and truth be told, most people never know it did happen, because it all happened behind the scenes, and then we'll go do a project. But,
I got a question.
yeah.
Farm to market funds, where, is that tax dollars, where does that come from?
Farm to market funds are mostly generated from a portion of gas tax and
Licenses.
license fees, thank you, license and title fees and that kind of stuff, so.
Okay.
And they're basically, they're kept and managed and everything distributed by the state. All that money comes into the state, so that is not a fund we keep in the treasurer's office, like our local taxes.
Thank you.
So, every county has a certain number distributed through a very, I won't say difficult, but a detailed equation, basically,
So
on
maybe per
multiple
capita
factors.
and other factors like that.
Oh, yeah, bridges, it gets into some statistics as far as your system itself, miles of roadway, and capita, I don't know that that's a huge one, to be honest with you. I'd have to look at the
It's
equation,
fine.
it's been a little while,
It's
but it is
a
like a
time.
4 or 5 equation thing where it ties into statistics that are consistent or updated and stuff like that.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Anyway, so those two projects, are separate in here, but very much linked together. Our hope is, by doing them both together, and it has been, we've been talking about this for a long time, is that we, maybe we get a little competition in the asphalt world, because we don't get any. I mean, we have one asphalt contractor, we also only have one concrete, as far as making the product, I guess is what I'll say. I don't know that'll be the case. I don't know that we'll get anybody with a portable plant willing to bid on this, but the larger the quantity, hopefully the economical cost savings we can see. So we will see how that all plays out.
Is there anything to that, somebody else gonna start up a concrete plant around this area?
I believe there is on the concrete side of things,
Yeah.
from what I'm told. Mount Pleasant and the same contractor and
Yeah.
is gonna open up one in Mount Pleasant and in Fairfield is what I've been told. I don't know that firsthand, but the people that told me felt that it was fairly certain. No, that's for concrete, not for asphalt, but, so. So anyway, those top two are coming along, bid them in December, through the DOT. And for next year's construction, I mean, the other reason I'm really pushing to keep these in 25, because we could nudge them back 1 year and do them in 26, but as we all know, the federal government's gonna come along and do, I think last I heard, it was a $1.7 billion project in the ammunition plant. And that's gonna bring a lot of people, a lot of traffic, a lot of everything. And I'd really like to get this done on the front end of that. Now, admittedly, last I heard, their first big year was supposed to be in 2025, which is not ideal. However, when the meeting I sat in, that said that they couldn't proceed until they had an actual full national budget. And as of right now, they're still on continuing resolutions. And they said in the meeting I was at that they cannot proceed with that massive part of their project until they're no longer on continuing resolutions. So, I gotta believe at some point they start the domino effect as they move stuff back if they can't do it without the funding source. So I'm hoping that maybe we can get this project done before they really get ramped up. That would be ideal, not to be doing the work, but they happen at the same time they happen. That's just the way it'll be. We've had ours in the works for a long time, and we're gonna keep on moving because the funding's tied to it. The last two on there are both asphalt jobs also. They're locally funded. The first one being Tamer Road and 198th Street. 198th Street is Seven Ponds Road, as far as the local designation, I guess I'll call it. Just a little dead end, I wanna say like 1.75 miles or something like that, dead end road that just simply needs a facelift, basically. So our hope is to just do a kind of a single lift mill and fill through there, get a new layer of asphalt on top of it, and give it an extended life. And then Tama Road, what I would like to do on that, you know, as you guys know, we used Tama Road as part of a detour route for Highway 99 last year. I thought all in all, it held up pretty well. But there was probably roughly a 1/4 mile section out towards the 125th area where we would like to do some either patching, significant patching, or possibly just tear it out and put a new segment in right there. So it's not big enough to really do on its own, so I may just link it into the plans and the Tama Road and just bid it all at the same time. Or I'm sorry, link it into the plans for Seven Ponds Road and maybe just do it all at the same time. So time will tell. That's kind of a rough plan. We have all the time in the world to get this put together because this is a locally funded project, so we can turn those around a lot quicker. We can get them bid a lot quicker. But our hope is to bid that again this winter. Again, with a large-scale asphalt job going on, we're hoping to get a little bit better prices.
When do you anticipate construction to start on these projects then?
Earliest would be spring of 25. And it could be any time, spring or summer of 25. At this point, I don't have any hard and fast deadlines or dates or anything like that.
Thanks.
But being that it is paving, there's no way until spring it'll happen because of temperatures and such, so. And the last one I'll mention is South Prairie Grove Road. That's more of a situation where it ties into Old 34, which we're gonna be working along. We haven't done any overlay on that since I've been here. And actually, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you it looks like it's shot, because it's not in horrible condition. But we're gonna be sitting there with an asphalt contractor literally at the end of the road. So common sense says that if we can afford it, it would make sense to try to do a mill and fill on that to give it a facelift, basically a new surface. Shane, can you keep it down just a little bit over there? So anyway, so we're looking at that. Now, I'll be the first to say, both of those are locally funded. And as you know, that I don't go spend money if I'm not comfortable spending it. So they're in the program, but we will adjust as we move forward with where we're at with our funds and our funding and all that sort of stuff. And if one of these needs to be scaled back or put on hold or something like that, you guys will know. I'll let you know that. But we have a lot of flexibility on the locally funded projects for what we do and how we do them. So, so time will tell on those, but that first page has a heavy theme of asphalt. And there's a reason for that, because we're always looking for cost savings, because we need all the savings so we can get the stretcher dollars as far as we can stretch them. So, I will say that once we're done doing those top two projects, our farm to market fund will be pretty much spent we will need to let it sit for a little while and kind of build back up. But that's okay, that's what it's there for, so.
I'm gonna have to call them when you start on that Prairie Grove Road. I'm gonna have my phone number convert it over to Tom and Shane. Them people are gonna want that all the way through.
I will emphasize, we are only resurfacing the currently paved road of South Prairie Grove. We are not going any further. So, we don't have the funding and we're just not, so. All right, next page. First one is North Gear Avenue Bridge Deck. Second one is Danville Road Bridge Deck. We're gonna go with another theme here. Both of these bridges, one is the only bridge on Danville Road and the other is the only bridge on North Gear. They both cross Blank Creek, ironically. And they both need the current bridge deck removed and a new bridge deck constructed. And they both will have approach work done on them at the same time. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. Same kind of time frame. We're hoping to bid these sometime next winter. And they'll be for construction of the following year. In the world we're in now, these will go through federal aid projects, because there's no longer true swap with these, so, they will both, even though you can look at the funding sources, in the end, they will all come out of our federal aid bridge funds. I don't remember the exact acronym for that anymore, HBRRP or something, I don't remember what the acronym is, but basically it's federal aid bridge funds. And, so, we're hoping to do both these together. There is the slightest of chances I'll split them up for funding purposes and do one in 2025 and one in 26. But as we speak right now, our consultant is putting together the plans for both of them and we're hoping to bid them both, even possibly tied together, so one contractor knows that they're getting two of them when they're bidding. And with them both being in our county, obviously they still have to mow between them, but contractors like to know, and that gives them a chance for their staff, their employees to know where they're gonna be for an extended period of time. And I think that's something that contractors appreciate, and I think it helps us as far as competition. So, that's exactly how that's how we handled our ARPA bridges. We tied them, we bid them both, and so that gave them a chance to go after two projects in one spot. So, so there's your top two projects. They're both estimated. One's estimated at 900,000. The other's estimated at $1 million. I'll be right up front. I don't know if that's accurate or not. It's in the ballpark. It's stupid expensive for what it used to cost, but that's just the world that I live in now. So when I get a little bit more accurate, and we get moving along, I'll give you guys an update. But for budgeting for right now, for this program and everything, it's just fine for where it sits. So. The next one is 160th Street Bridge. This is the bridge I've talked about on and off for the last 3 weeks. We have a contractor sitting there right now that we drove by it on their program. This is the one where they were all formed up, but they forgot to order couple little pieces of steel actually. So they're waiting for that to come in, and then they will go ahead and get done with the abutments, get that concrete poured. They will move out, and then we will handle it from there. So I just have this in here because I'm suspecting that our crew won't be there till June or July, which means it'll roll into next budget year. But if something happens and we get in there before, we won't even spend any money out of this one because we'll have spent the money in the current fiscal year. So it's just the what if game that I'm playing to make sure there's some funding in there. So anyway, that's a location where there was a bridge there. We came in and put in 3 tank cars quite a few years ago, and the levee district, or the drainage district for that matter, they're one and the same now, came to us about 3 or 4 years ago and asked if we would consider putting a bridge back in. Now, we did the culverts with their blessing, we didn't just run off and do what we wanted. But what they're having problems with is now they're having problems with an invasive vegetation plugging up culverts down there, which is making it hard for them to keep their drainage ditches flowing. So they asked if we would consider putting a bridge back in. I made a deal with them, the board was good with it, so that's what we're doing now, is putting a bridge back in where there was a bridge prior.
Give me just a second, and Tracy might be aware of this. If you put $10,000 in the budget this year to buy a whatnot, if you don't get that whatnot purchased this year, you still have the $10,000, but you can't spend it in the following year until it's in the following year's budget to have the spending authority for that.
Right.
No, okay, I didn't, okay.
Yeah, so,
Got you.
well, and the, good or bad, the thing with my budget is it's protected, it's constitutionally protected. So the board can't just take money that's dedicated funding source for roads and use it for something non-road related, straight in the code of Iowa. So, which is very important because we never know fiscal year when something's gonna happen. I could come in here today and say something and next week it could be completely different. That's just the way construction tends to go. It's been that way forever, that's not anything special. So if I put a project in this year and a project in next year, well, it's gonna happen one or the other, we're not gonna spend the money twice, it's just so it's there. And this project actually might have strung between 3 years because the bridge steel I purchased through a bid process and that was purchased before, that may have been last fiscal year, I don't even remember.
So these are placeholders.
Well, they can be looked at that sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, this one is kind of that. This is just like, okay, I don't know when exactly we'll get our crew there for that labor, so at least it's there as a placeholder. It's already in this year's as a placeholder also, so just a matter of when it happens.
Okay.
You know, some of these I can tell you for sure, you know, those 2 asphalt jobs we were talking about earlier, if they're gonna happen in 25. Now, what fiscal year? I couldn't tell you. I mean, when you start talking 25, there's 2 fiscal years there, because of July, so I have to play the fiscal year game because that's what we budget to, but I don't play it very seriously because I'd go out of my mind trying to guess.
Well, I'm sure your contractors don't operate or the same.
No, that's not their world.
No, it's not their world at all.
They just need the weather to be warm and then they'll work till winter. So, then the bottom there, you see a Tama Road Bridge, T13. I've been considering, I'm waiting for our next round of inspections, to be honest with you. I get that report, might be Friday actually, from our consulting firm. But there's a bridge on Tama Road that I've been thinking about having that Eurotech come back, that we had do that yellow polyfoam that they do the injections on, and possibly go down as it's a shorter bridge on Tama Road. The other bridge, we had that patching crew do the deck patching on last year. And the year before, we had Eurotech come in and raise those approaches, if you remember, because they had settled about 3 inches, so there was quite the bump. Which, I mean, I have to say, they came in and that was probably half the cost of new concrete. So it's not cheap, but it's also more economical than some of the other options. I've considered having them come in on the shorter bridge on Tama, so that's why this is in here. I don't know that this will happen. I've been kicking it around for maybe even a year or 2. So, but that's what that's in there for, and we'll see what happens and where it goes. So, any questions on that page? All right, next page. Top, Highway 61 approaches. This is more for Tracy's purposes rather than anybody else, because you guys already know this. When the DOT came along and did their 4-lane north of Burlington, one of the things that we took the initiative to do, and the board agreed with the expenditure, was the DOT agreed as part of their project, we had them pave a 50-foot approach on every gravel road of concrete up against their concrete road. So there's 2 reasons for that. Anyway, we did an agreement with them and we agreed to pay for the construction cost of doing that. They didn't charge us for putting in their plans or anything like that, but we of course had to pay for the actual work. And the 2 reasons for that, one is that right at that stop sign is where on a gravel road where it's your highest wear and tear. Any stop sign on a gravel road is where you're gonna have washboards, it's where you're gonna have maybe some potholes. You're gonna struggle there because people are stopping and starting all the time. And so there's more work there to be done. Well, that puts the motor grader in a bad spot when they're working up against 70-mile-per-hour traffic, trying to do that. So by doing this, first of all, it makes it safer for the traffic to pull in and out, particularly onto, because they're not spinning out on gravel and stuff like that. Secondly, it makes it a ton safer for our motor grader operators to be able to maintain that road, because they no longer have to be, when they're doing the blading of the gravel, they no longer have to be right on the shoulder, right up against the traffic. Now, clearly, when they're doing snow, they still need to be out there, but that's more of a push it off the road and get out of the way kind of a thing, so anyway, the reason you see this 300,000 in here is because the DOT has yet to invoice us for all of the approaches that they have now done up and down the road. So at some point, we're gonna get an invoice. And I've had this in, I know it's in the current year. I think it was in the last 2 years, because you don't ever know when it's gonna come along, you just know you need to do it. And unlike, the next segment to the north is a much smaller cost because there's not that many approaches. So if it catches off guard, it's not that big of a deal, but this is right around a $300,000 expenditure, so we wanna make sure we've accounted for it. So, that's what that is.
How many approaches do you do? I mean, if you don't know it, don't worry about it, I'm just curious.
We don't even have a county map in here anymore. Huh, I'll talk to the auditor about that. I'd have to sit there and think about it, but I can get you an exact number, I'd have to think about the gravel road intersections.
Right.
But this would cover everything from Burlington up to, I wanna say up to about Pleasant Grove Road. That length right there, there's about 11 miles roughly in that stretch. I just don't remember exactly how many there were.
It's okay, I can get a map out and count myself.
Well, and I can give it to you, I just don't know it off the top of my
It's okay.
head.
If you knew, I'd be
So,
curious.
I can count, if you remind me afterwards, I'll count it up for you.
Alright.
Let's see if Devin's got them on this still, we may have removed them. Or my eyes aren't good enough to see them. Yeah, we'll go with my eyes aren't good enough to see them. But anyway, a fair amount, I'll get them count for you.
Don't worry about it.
So anyway, that's what the approaches are, and then, the next 3 are pretty standard light items in most years of my construction program. So rock surfacing, we use that for, pinching, so about $80,000 gets us, so every year I spend about 5 miles worth of rock to come in and basically re-crown 4 to 5 miles of gravel road. And we take it out of new construction because it's kind of sort of, even though we're doing it in-house, we're kind of rebuilding that road to a certain extent. It's a really good product in the long run, but it can wear people a little thin when we first do it. So that's why when it's rock surfacing, most of our rock surfacing actually comes out of our regular budget. I mean, we spend over $1 million on rock, but we do take a small amount and put it into here, to help kind of with a more invasive or more aggressive project on a shorter mile roads. Like I said, normally 4 to 5 miles. So that's what that is. We're buying rock, that's what that comes down to. And then culvert liners and right of way, those are just two, you call them placeholders, I think that's a great way to put it. There's not something predetermined for those, it's just almost any given year, not necessarily buying right of way, that's more of a crapshoot, but it gives me some money if something comes up short notice that I need to buy some right of way, without having to find it somewhere else. And then the culvert liners, I'm not sure there's a year that comes and goes where I don't have to bring in a contractor to deal with something that it's under a paved road most of the time where we don't want to tear the road out.
Okay.
So it's kind of a placeholder.
Okay.
And I've got a guy lined up this summer already. I think I just committed to 25,000 under Highway 99. There's 4 culverts that we want to get dealt with before we do that asphalt job. So just an example of how those pop up. Most of the time it starts with a hole that we didn't know about, and then you start looking harder. So that's the first year. That's the most important year because that's realistically what's gonna happen over the next, we're sitting in April, but from July to June, yeah, over the next year and a half. Any questions before I keep going? All right. 2026, it's the green year. I'm gonna lead right off with a disclaimer on the very first project, also the biggest ticket item in this one. I don't know if I can afford this project. It's in here, It's also 2 years away, so I have plenty of time to evaluate, but the very first project is Pleasant Grove Road PCC, which PCC is the acronym for concrete, since we have so many acronyms.
Can I jump in here a minute? Tracy, and if you know this, tell me. Secondary road budget is, he's pretty much got a cap on that. The county is allowed to give them 16 cents, essentially, out of the general basic levy, and $3 out of the rural services levy. Those are the caps on that, that's all he gets. And then when the Des Moines County voted for the local option sales tax award, whenever that was, part of the vote was, or the intention, or what was told the public, was 50% of what the county gets goes to secondary roads.
And that
That's-
has to be used for
That
new
has to be-
construction or for new equipment.
Right. So, and that's all the county can legally spend for it. We could spend something out of general basic if we wanted to something like that, but there's no room in general basic to start throwing in highway projects.
Yeah, I'm capped, I'm not only capped on what I can spend, because I can't go over what I get, I'm capped on what I can receive directly from the board, on far as local dollars.
So roughly 16 cents out of general basic and 3 out of rural.
$3 out of rural
So
services.
what's roughly a year? What
Oh,
is-
I can give you, Cheryl has that, right, how about I just have Cheryl give you our revenue out of our, how about I just send you our budget booklet? It'll show.
Okay, yeah.
Give me 1 second, I'll have Cheryl print the revenue sheet.
The transfer
slowly. That'll tell you
revenue
exactly
from
what it
general
is.
basic and rural
Yep.
services.
Yep.
And then half
Hold on
of
one
the,
second.
our sales tax revenue, somewhere in the vicinity of $2 million.
Uh-huh.
And he would, not he,
$2 million.
but secondary roads would get that. The rest of it is farm to market funds, which is dependent on what the state receives, obviously, in taxes and the formula they use to figure out that. And federal funds, we don't have any control over any of that.
So usually when you get federal funds, is that in the form of grants or is it, or
There's-
is there a formula and you get some
There's a
every
federal,
year?
there's a federal bridge fund. I would ask Brian about that, but it's, the problem with federal funds, as you might be aware, is it comes with a crap
A whole
load
bunch of different
of
strings.
regulations and
Probably adds
it costs, it probably costs 20% more
It's kind of
to
like
do.
getting a CDBG grant.
Yeah, so it costs a lot more, but Brian explained that to you, but I just thought it might be, if it's public money, there's a cap on what,
What you
you know, this is, you don't have to give them that much money, but if you don't give them at least 75% that much money, then you don't get any of the state funds.
can, okay.
So, and we've always fully funded, secondary roads, but that's the cap on it.
Okay, all right. Thank you. No, I didn't understand.
Secondary roads is just like public safety, just like our sheriff's
As
department.
long as Brian took a minute, I'm gonna take a minute, if you'll excuse me.
We don't have good roads and bridges to drive on, you know, infrastructure wise.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to explain this. I'm sure this is the last thing you all want to do this morning.
Tracy, are you gonna be here from now on?
Yes.
Well, good.
You're stuck with the Moines,
Well,
so I will
no, we're not
be
stuck.
nearly as entertaining as possible.
We're not stuck with you.
I might have to interrupt you again, there's some rain out there.
Is there rain out there?
Listen,
Go
listen,
downstairs.
it's not that big a deal, like,
When I talk farm to market,
I just
that
thought it was
goes through
long
the
as
state,
mine,
the
but
federal
that was
stuff
like-
rolls through somewhere else.
I'll tell you what, when I have to go, we're gonna get a line out there, I'm gonna slide down that bandit.
Yeah, so about 36%.
Then you might wanna think it's gonna be soon, I would be headed down to Bannister.
We don't get that much.
Apparently, I don't know whether they've got jury selection or whether these are.
Thank you.
I'm happy you.
Action at the court.
Hold me.
I appreciate that, thanks. And I appreciate you taking the time to explain this, and I hate to take up everybody's time.
That's what we're here
Oh,
for.
this is
This is fascinating.
This
to
is
me,
a
so.
little bit different going through it this way, so yeah, that's no problem. When we sit here and he's just talking to us, we've heard all this and we've looked at this, and some of the stuff that's for next year or whatever, you know, We've talked about it for several years, and we've driven by it, and we know what's going on, so this is
Well, and just for, you know, whatever you wanna do, you know, the focus for me is gonna be on that first year.
Yep.
So, cause that's what.
That, I'm gonna hit
likely
the
gonna
second
happen.
year and then I'm gonna skim the rest, so it's all out there.
Okay.
And then you ask questions when you have questions.
Alright, perfect.
So, and really, I'm gonna hammer, really, on, when I say the second year, that it's the first project. So, I'll give a little background just for Tracy's purposes, cause you guys have heard me. Pleasant Grove Road. I don't remember how long it is all the way across it. It's paved from Highway 61 over to Danville Road. And at some point, it's all going to need to be replaced. It's probably approaching 40 years old. And it's on the tail end of living its life. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the money just to swoop in and do that. Especially now that things cost almost twice as much as they did 5 years ago. And that's the unfortunate truth of what it costs.
Does Tracy know about the $1 million? Did you tell Christian about that part?
Well, I
It
mean,
used to be $1 million too.
I mean, when people, you know, that's what people wanna know. They wanna know what's it gonna cost to pave my road, that everybody wants their gravel road paved kind of thing. And we used to say $1 million a mile. That was my round number. And I would say, well, that, you know, that doesn't include bridges and culverts. I mean, but if you just asked me, these days, I would probably tell you it's gonna be closer to $2 million a mile. And that's not an exaggeration. So this stretch of road right here is not all of Pleasant Grove Road. It is the east 1.2 miles. It would be from Iowa City Road, which is concrete, fairly new concrete, to the highway, to Highway 61. The reason it's in here, because I've told you already, I don't know that we can actually afford this. We won't know until we see, you know, what the rest of this year goes like financially, possibly what next winter looks like.
I already told everybody you were gonna do it though.
Okay,
so.
perfect, thank you.
give me your cell phone number. and I give you your stuff.
I say get their hopes up and then just crash them. But always blame somebody else when you crash them. So, so this $2 million is for about 1.2 miles roughly. The reason it's in here is more opportunity than it is. I mean, it's a need, but I don't know that's a realistic expenditure, I guess, what I'm going with. The DOT is bidding their bypass concrete in July. Now, that contractor's timing will have a big impact on this decision along with our funding. If that contractor doesn't, that paving contractor doesn't start until 2025, my guess is they might have a year and a half worth of work there, depending on how they go about it, because the DOT is gonna get them a lot of working days. So there's nothing saying we'll see any concrete from that. Now, if they come in and go crazy this fall, I guess where I'm going with this is if we have a contractor sitting there with a portable plant, it gives us a chance at competition. Yet again, you'll hear me talk about competition all the time. We just don't have a lot. We have a lot of competition when it comes to actually placing the concrete, the contractor that's actually putting it down. But for the product itself, whether it be asphalt or concrete, we have one supplier for concrete and we have one supplier for asphalt. And that's all we have. And that's not terribly uncommon when you get to the outer corners and the outer reaches, when you get away from the Des Moines, when you get away from the Iowa cities, that kind of a thing. So I guess why this is in here is just to point out that if we feel like we have the money and if we think we can pull it off, we might be able to link the new highway with Iowa City Road, which is a newer road, get that possibly done. And that way, when we go to work on the remainder of Pleasant Grove someday, that segment will be able to be used as part of an overall detour route, rather than having it torn out at some point. So I don't know if that pipe dream's all gonna work out. We're gonna know, it'll all fall into place or it won't. You guys will know, everybody will know. But it is in here and we'll see what happens. So we are gonna start, well, the guys in the office have plenty of priorities right now that are not tied to this, but once we get those priorities buttoned up, we will start working towards more of a design phase on this so that we're at least prepared, depending on when I make the judgment call on whether we can afford it or not. And to be honest with you also, again, it ties back. If the DOT's paving contractor comes in and just goes gangbusters and their plant's gone before we could even bid this, then there's not a big rush for us to go bid this. There's no reason to push ourselves to a funding limit, because we're not gonna get the competition that we're hoping for, so we might as well do it when it fits for us, whenever that happens. So, time will tell, we'll see, I guess that's the best thing I can say. So hopefully it'll work out, but if it doesn't, life will go on, we'll move on to something else. Probably what will happen, you're gonna see the rest of that year, again, rock surfacing, culvert liners, and right of way. Probably what you'll see is if we can't do that, whether it be because we can't afford it or because the timing doesn't work, you'll probably see on the next page, you've got a blue year. You'll probably see at least the crack sealing in that year shuffle forward, is probably what you'll see. You'll see that we are hoping to do a crack sealing job on Mediapolis Road, Yarmouth Road, which is 205th. I'm not sure why I didn't just put the number, and then 260th. You'll just see that move forward and take its spot. It's obviously a more economical project. It fits, if we can't afford $2 million, we can probably afford a bigger crack sealing. And we asphalt, we did an asphalt job on those roads probably 6 years ago now. So it's heading into the age where it needs to be crack sealed to help extend its life. So I'm just wanting to point out that there may be some flopping as we move forward and shuffling around, just depending on how everything works out. So I'm done with the green year unless anybody has any questions. So the blue year, Tom, you want me to wait?
He's already out the door.
Oh, yeah.
Already out.
Okay.
You go on, we
I'll
know.
keep moving, I think he already knows.
We know, so.
So the blue year, I've already mentioned crack sealing. That's just a round number. I couldn't even tell you exactly what that cost will be when that day comes along. And then, probably the next big what if, and this is the one that's I'm probably gonna have to move something around and make this happen sooner than later. I have a generic catch-all project right there. It says Pleasant Grove Road culverts. So a lot of what they did on Pleasant Grove Road when they came along and paved it was they didn't take out the old culverts and just put new concrete culverts in. A lot of what they did was they left what was under the old road and just extended with something like corrugated pipe. And as ironic as it is, because I've been working on this program for at least a month, and we took our tour last week.
Yeah.
Well, last Thursday or Friday, I don't remember which day it was, I ended up on Pleasant Grove Road. Andy Brader had called and wanted me to take a look at a culvert. It's on Pleasant Grove Road, and it's exactly what they did. There's supposedly under the old road, there was an old concrete box. And instead of extending it as a concrete box or extending it and putting a new culvert in, when they came along and did the current Pleasant Grove Road grade and pave stuff, which would have been probably in the 80s, early 80s, late 70s if I had to guess. The concrete wasn't until the 80s for sure. They just took corrugated pipe, shoved it in both ends, tied it together, and called it good. Guess what's shot? The concrete pipe, which is probably on one end 20 foot underneath dirt, the other end not quite as deep. So, and it's shot. At a bare minimum, the culverts are the corrugated culverts are shot. So where I'm going with that is I'm guessing it will get me through this year if I need it to, but we're gonna have to do something on some culverts no matter what. And keep in mind, that culvert isn't in the area that I'm talking right now about that end, that 1.2 miles. The culverts in that have been replaced. We've had to do those over the last 10 or 15 years. They've failed also. One was a wood box that they shoved corrugated culverts into, it failed. The other failed during a FEMA project years ago. We got 8 inches of rain in the Mediapolis area, and it ended up washing out about half of Pleasant Grove Road, and we did it as a FEMA job. So, so actually the culverts in the section I'm talking about are good to go. They're in good condition long term. But west of that, you have all the rest of Pleasant Grove Road, and there's some pretty good sized culverts under there that we're gonna have to deal with. Whether or not we do any paving, they're starting to wear out. So, I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but I can tell you this, to dig a hole through a concrete road, put in a pretty sizable culvert and then put it all back is not a cheap proposition. So, time will tell. I mentioned that because I can guarantee you it will not be 2027 before I have to spend a chunk of change on a culvert on Pleasant Grove Road. I proved that last week when I was standing there trying to figure out why I have holes on both sides of the road. Then I started digging and found out that on one side they have 60 foot of corrugated pipe that's now, from what I can tell, completely shot, and on the other side there's 30-some feet that seems to be fairly shot. So, and of course the connection is underneath the old road, the current road. So time will tell. I'll sort that out, but we may end up doing an impromptu project this summer or even next summer, or bid it next winter for the following summer or something, just to deal with that. I mean, the culvert alone, I mean, it's a pretty good drainage area there. There's a chance that could be just a $200,000 or $300,000 job on its own, just for that.
You're gonna put some culverts back in.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if there's some way, if we can get a look at the current concrete culvert that's still under there, I haven't ruled out, because Andy's good to work with, and the other landowner I think would be good to work with too. We haven't ruled out going in and excavating back and seeing if we could use a camera to get a better look at the concrete that's still in there. If it's in good shape still, and maybe it will be, we haven't ruled out new extensions to get us through instead of tearing out the road. But truthfully, the only thing I've done so far has been on site to see, yeah, we have a real problem. We talked to Andy came over while we were there, so Devin and I talked to Andy for a little while and talked about how they did it, what they did, that kind of a thing. But I can tell you, it's not a good sign when the water's not running in the inlet culvert and the outlet culvert's so rusted out that it's not running out the outlet culvert. It's coming out the bottom in the dirt. So, either way, the fun surprises you get. I guess what I'm saying though is, then that's a great example why the other reason why that $2 million concrete job on Pleasant Grove may not happen. We may need to divert some of that money just to deal with stuff that's more imminent threat to the road. So, we'll see. So as far as 2027 goes, as you'll see, I finished it up with rock servicing and culvert liners, and right away. So, anybody got any questions on 27?
No.
All right, 28, which is purple. I'll just kind of roll through this a little bit quicker. That's a bridge replacement on Beaverdale Road. You'll see two projects on the bottom, one on page 7, that mentions Meeker's Landing Road. There's a culvert down right before the curve there that we're keeping an eye on. It's corrugated. The last I looked at it was still good shape. The landowner has asked that if we replace it, that we raise it a little bit, we lower it a little bit to help with some water level stuff, but honestly, it's been there for a long, long time, so that's less of my concern. So if we can fit it into a budget, it's on our radar, because it is a corrugated culvert under a concrete road, and the fact is a corrugated culvert does have a finite life. It will rust out. That's just the life of it. Right now, it's in our program, but I'm not gonna say it's nowhere near top priority. So, and I would also mention there's that second project on Meeker's Landing Road. Meeker's Landing Road is a terrible road if you drive a semi or a tractor. It's a concrete road, but the joints aren't reinforced, so it's extremely rough. If we ever get the opportunity to fix that culvert and stuff, I'd like to come along and maybe try to stabilize the joints and then maybe do a fine mill on that to get that road to a better ride, I guess is what I'd call it. Time will tell. Those are all out there a little ways, and with what everything costs, I'm not sure when and if that'll even happen.
What is it the city did out by,
West Avenue.
Yeah.
West Avenue, out by those,
Same thing.
senior homes? Yeah,
That's what I envision.
okay.
where they came in and they stitched in rebar, in the tire tracks basically, and they did some patching, and then they came along with it's a specialty contractor, and it's not cheap, and they basically did a really fine mill, to get that to a much improved ride. That's kind of what I envisioned for Meeker's Landing.
That turned out pretty good out there.
I think it did. They really wanted me to do that with them, to try to get some economy of scale. They approached me about it, and I just didn't have the money at the time. That's been, what, 3 or 4 years ago, or.
Several years ago, my daughter was chief administrator out there at Sunnybrook.
Mm-hmm.
Went out there to see her one day, and this guy come around the corner with a trailer, and he had 2 garden tractors on there. And he didn't have them strapped down too good. Them garden tractors was, all 4 wheels jumping up on that trailer to go over them. Wow. That's how bad that was.
Well, I have ridden on Meeker's Landing in something that doesn't have good suspension. It is not I mean, it just takes a 1-ton truck and you'll know it's not an enjoyable ride. And everybody down there lives with it. It's not the perfect world. So anyway, that's what that is. I don't know that it'll happen, but I wanted to, it is in here. Page 8, the tail end of 2028, couple smaller projects. There's a bridge out on Gemtown Road that's got, it's the upper end of Flint Creek, and it's doing what Flint Creek does. It's meandering pretty drastically, and if it continues to do so, it'll start to threaten the road behind the bridge. It'll try to cut behind the bridge. So we may end up having to go to those landowners and get some easement and maybe come in and do some riprapping to help stabilize that channel where it sits. We did something very similar just north of Burlington on 165th. I've had you guys out to take a look at it. This is a much larger scale than that, but anyway, that's what that is. And then there's the old Highway 61 segments for asphalt. That's the road, sections of road that we're gonna take over from the DOT. I would like sometime to do an economical treatment on those to hopefully put those away and not have to think about them for a long, long time as far as any expenditures. So I don't know, again, with what everything's cost, time will tell with some of these, what I'll call right now, lower priority things even become a thing, but they're in here for now. And then you'll see there's also Highway 61 approaches. That's the same conversation I had earlier. When the DOT moves on to the north, there's at least 2 or 3 more approaches that we'll do on the gravel roads. So, once you get up to the north end, so. Any questions on 2028? All right, so 2029, I'm gonna give my speech so Tracy understands how I use the 5th year of our 5-year construction program. You guys are aware of it. Every board that I've ever had's been aware of it. So the 5th year of my program is, I'll just lead into it. If you look at the very back page of your program, there's summaries for each year. Well, no, you guys skipped you program, see the 25, it gives your summaries for all the projects. Are you in the budget? You gotta go forward a little bit. Nope, you're still in the budget. Keep going. That one. Yeah. This is a separate, is it stapled together? Alright, that's a separate document. This is the end of the program.
Okay.
So that very last year, you'll see it has $31,800,000. I can tell you right now that we don't have $31 million in 2029. But I don't think there's a single year where somebody doesn't come and want a road paved or want something done, whatever it is. I just moved out here, and what's it gonna take to get this road paved? I hear that not every week by any means, but certainly at least a couple times a year. And I think the board gets contacted periodically about, let's do this, we need to do that, this is, whatever it is. So what I do in my 2029, my last year, is I try to look longer term and say, what are our priorities that we need to have on our radar, but we know we can't afford? And then I kind of order them in that last year. It's kind of sort of higher priority to lower priority, but they're all priority. And my goal is there that if the board gets dinged, out and about, maybe they probably don't have this document, but they've been doing it long enough, they listen to me. And they know that there's all these other priorities that we really truly probably can't afford. So the fact is that if so-and-so shows up and says, I just bought an acreage 3/4 of a mile down this gravel road, and I'm from wherever, and I don't like gravel, and I wanna pave this road, that's a cost. I don't care if they share it or not. I don't care if the board says, well, we'll pay 80%, and you know, we'll pay 20%, whatever it is. There's a cost. That road will have to be dealt with sometime in the next 30 or 40 years. That's a cost to the local taxpayers and everything else. So this is just showing, when I roll through these projects, it's showing that there are priorities out there that need to be done that we truly probably can't afford. So that it keeps it in perspective when somebody wants something done that is not a priority, I guess. And so, cause that's kind of, I don't, you know, this is a 5-year program, but my brain's thinking like 20 to 40 years. And I'm not gonna be here in 40 years, but I'm gonna live here in 40 years. And my guess, if it costs this much now, it's gonna cost you more then. So try to make decisions that not just helps us, but helps them too in the future. So starting out 2029, and I'm just gonna kind of skim through real quick, and you're welcome to ask me questions. I don't really expect you to, but Pleasant Grove Road, you're gonna see a theme here. There's another Pleasant Grove Road in here too, just because I mentioned that there's X amount of miles of Pleasant Grove Road and they all need to be dealt with. This is the west 2.7 miles, and I say west, so there's a quarry and a bridge right in the middle, kind of in the middle of Pleasant Grove Road. So we kind of treat the roads a little differently east and west, not so much in how we look at anything, but it does kind of split the road up a little bit. And so this is the west of the quarry, so from the quarry over to Danville Road. Somewhere between now and this winter, I mentioned to these guys, so we apply for our federal SDBG funds through regional planning. We apply about once every 4 years. The local counties basically take a turn, roughly every 4 years. And so our turn is coming up this winter, which I know that seems like a long ways away, but it'll be here before I know it and everybody else knows it. I need to decide where I want to apply that federal funding towards. So I'm zeroing in on 2 different projects, as I've already told you guys. One would be that west 2.7 miles of Pleasant Grove Road. The other possibility would be Highway 79 for an asphalt overlay. So in here, the very first 2 projects in 2029 have a lot of meaning to them. They both show the possibility of federal aid funds, roughly 1.8 million of federal aid funds. So we will make a decision somewhere before winter on which one we're going to apply for, and that will be our focus as far as making sure that the funding's there when we get that money. Now, when we apply for that money, it's 4 to 5 years away.
That was gonna be my next question, isn't that 4 to 5 years out
Exactly.
from here?
So
And you apply every 4
So that's why
years.
this is then, so
Yeah.
this project in the 5th year is actually probably going to stay in 2029. There's a good chance, now maybe 2030, but somewhere in there was when that federal funding will come available for us. So there is more meaning than just pie in the sky in the 2029, but it also is intended to show priorities. And the fact is that if I can't go do both of them, then one of them gets left in the dust for a later date. So it just kicks it down the road further. So anyway, I don't know which it'll be, but I do want to point out that there are 2 projects in a row, back to back. One's an asphalt overlay on 79, the other's a concrete replacement job on Pleasant Grove Road. And one of those will be what we settle on to do with that federal funding when we apply for it. So then, I'm on page 9 now, Mediapolis Road, widen and pave shoulders, shows $6 million, if you guys see where I'm talking about. Now, there is an example of a project that, unless we come up with some type of a grant, it's never gonna happen. We will never ever have $6 million to spend on Mediapolis Road, and that's from Mediapolis to 99. Helps with Tracy having a history of Mediapolis, she knows what I'm talking
Exactly
about.
what you're talking about, yeah.
So the only reason this is in here, Tracy, because we actually did an asphalt overlay on this section of the road, I wanna say 5 or 6 years ago, I don't remember when it was. The way that the federal government right now has money out there, it's a bunch of grants, it's a bunch of competitive grant application stuff. It's not all, but it's a chunk of it. I don't know if this will work out, but the Amish have now moved into that area. And so maybe I can use the Amish as an angle, because they used that section of Mediapolis Road to be able to justify widening it and getting paved shoulders on the side so they can safely use the shoulders with their horse and buggy rather than being out in the lane. Which would obviously be good for us on our pavement, because steel wheels are really hard on pavement, on asphalt particularly. So this is one of those where we're not gonna go spend $6 million, and that's not even an accurate number. I don't know what it'll be, but it won't be cheap, because if you look at Mediapolis Road, it's a lot of dirt to get shoulders built. And then if you're paving a lane, a shoulder/lane for horse and buggies to run on, I mean, you're basically paving a lane in both directions. So you're not far off of doing a paved road to a certain extent. So it could be $1 million a mile, I mean, easily. So, I don't know. To me, it's a really, the way they've done this transportation program, it's a really poor way to try to spend money. But, it's there, and we're in the process of updating our safety plan, as the board's aware of, which is, again, a grant thing, through the state that's happening on 99 counties. Maybe eventually there's some grant out there that we can kind of angle the agriculture use combined with the safety and the Amish and all that sort of stuff to get shoulders and paved shoulders and all that sort of stuff there. It would have to be a really good grant, because we're not gonna have the money to do a whole lot of match there, so we'll see, time will tell. But that's what that is. So.
Let me throw one more thing out there about roads. Is rural bridges. You cannot spend more than, I believe it's $250,000. I mean, or bond for more than $250,000 without a countywide referendum. Between you and me, the chances of passing a referendum countywide for a rural bridge aren't very high. So that's why most counties, they end up having to use regular funds for rural bridges like that. The exception was it 2 years ago, we built a bridge down by Case, 3
Yep.
years ago, 2 years ago?
3 years.
You know where I mean?
Yep.
That touches Burlington. If a bridge touches the county and a city, an incorporated city, then you can bond for that. So we used debt service.
Would
we used
bond
debt
for it
service
without a
funds.
vote.
Without
the
a vote.
public
Right,
having to
right,
approve
right,
it.
without the public having to vote, that's correct. Anyway, and so we did that without raising taxes, we did it through the debt service levy. But, that's another, when you hear Brian mention the ARPA bridges, that stands for American Rescue Plan Act, that the federal government gave Des Moines County about $7.5 million for, it started out for very defined uses, and then it's since spread into pretty much whatever you wanna use it for.
Yeah.
So we've got 2 bridges, and the one on 99 that the state
Clear up
gave us,
north.
and the one on, Upper Flint Road, that, are $1 million bridges. And this was, the only way we had to do them, it was an opportunity to do that with federal funds without having to take that money out of the regular funds of secondary roads, which would cut back. Like I said, you can't just raise taxes and bring in more money if you wanna do something. Those are capped. So, that gave us an opportunity where we didn't have to, reduce maintenance or anything to squeeze those into the regular budget.
But you can't plan for those kinds of.
No,
things, you know,
no, you
that's-
can't, I'm just saying it was an opportunity.
Right.
So that's why we're using the ARPA money for that.
You can plan for all you want, but the money doesn't, I mean, there's no magic act. You know, if money's not there for transportation, it's not there. And, the credit to the board bond, Tom's going backwards, but the bond on the Flint Creek Bridge, that was, I wanna say that was roughly $3 million, I don't remember. But we would have basically shut down our construction program for at least 2 or 3 years to do that bridge. So by doing that with the bond and keeping the rest of the program going, we could actually move along, and then this last summer, we just replaced the next bridge north, which was all told I wanna say it was a $2.5 million project or something like that, but we did that with the funds we have regular because we didn't have to commit them to the other bridge. So, it's just an expensive business to be in, but I think we have a much better highway system for it, yeah, so, yeah, that's where I'm like, if it happens, it happens, if it doesn't, we probably can't afford it, because there is a very defined line of if you don't have it, you don't do it. So anyway, so I mentioned Mediapolis Road, I'll let that one go. There's another, gotta have a grant or come up with some other way to pay for it, the next bridge, which is 40th Avenue, I had you guys on it, that's the Big Ditch Bridge. So if you've been up in the bottoms, it's very obvious, it's a big truss bridge that's, you can see for miles. It's just gonna be really hard to fund if there's not some other source of funding for it. It's just the way it is, it's an expensive bridge because it's a long bridge. It's a hard bridge to build because there's some other factors there, but, so it's just a bridge, it's kind of on our radar, but right now, it's just out there as a priority, but not something that we have the money for. The bottom of that page 9, yet again, we're gonna finish up the theme of Pleasant Grove Road. That's kind of the remaining mileage that I haven't already sat here and discussed. I don't know where the money will come from that, but again, it's pointing out to the board that it is a priority. I mean, some of these projects that are in 2029, they're gonna be in 2030 next year, they're gonna be in 2031 the year after, because it needs to. People, if we get, well, we've done it. I've had a room full of people here that want a road paved.
Sure.
And I just sit here and I'm like, I'll just say, if the board wants to deflect money from something else, they just gotta decide what we're taking it from, because it is truly that simple. If you go spend $500,000 here, you will not spend it over here. Unless you're Wise County, I mean, you sometimes, but I'm not gonna, don't throw that in your article. That was off the record, but, no, you can't spend it twice. So, there is definitely, I don't care really, Colin faces the same thing in his, but anybody in government that understands their budget, understands that principle. So, they're just, just the way it is. So anyway, the bottom, Pleasant Grove Road, that's kind of that balance of that mileage that still needs to be addressed. I can't sit here and tell you exactly how we'll pay for it, but we'll deal with it when time comes along. Page 10, there's another concrete road, Beaverdale Road, I gotta think about this one. Oh yeah, that's where it turns to concrete from when you go out past my office, Beaverdale Road, and becomes gravel. That's Shane's favorite road to go up to church. But to look at our ditching job that he's proud of. So that's an aging concrete road in our county. And it just, I guess it is what it is, but it's out there and someday it's gonna have to be replaced. Next one, Bridgeport Road paving, same thing. We did the north 8/10 of a mile a year ago, I wanna say. I think we were doing that last spring, as we speak right now. I think it was a really mild spring. We started that project in March. Well, there's still 1.7 miles from what we did down to the county line, which is the Skunk River, that we haven't, we don't have the money for. But, so it's just, there's a reminder. Then you got a couple asphalt jobs, Summer Street, Dodgeville Road, kind of your typical asphalt, kind of eventually gonna need a mill and fill kind of a deal. Page 11, there's another bridge. That one's on Beaverdale Road, which you're gonna see a theme of because there's 3 bridges on Beaverdale Road. 2 of them are posted, one's not. Another bridge, that's on Golden Road. Another bridge back on Beaverdale Road. And then another bridge up on a little dead end, not dead end, but on a dirt road clear up in the north end of the county. And then a culvert on the tail end of it, that's down on Skunk River Road. So, but I wanna emphasize, I'm gonna go back to the fact, they're, 31,800,000. My guess is that in 5 years, if you wanted to look, that's probably low. I mean, these aren't inflated. In fact, if anything, I'm probably low as we speak. Because I don't put a ton of effort into an estimate for a project that's 5 years out. I mean, I make sure my round number is in the ballpark, but I'm not gonna bury myself on that number. So, it's to show people that we have a lot of need and not necessarily the funding to get there. So, because we do. I've always said that if you're in transportation, and whether it's a city or a county, if you're being honest with yourself, you're actually losing ground. It's not the way you wanna think about it, but you're slowly going backwards. Cause there's just, and I said that before the fact, everything went anywhere from 60% to 100% more than what it cost 3 or 4 years ago. Which we have actually proof of from our bids. So, so that's the construction program in a nutshell. We kind of flew through it a little faster than prior, but it's actually, truth be told, because of some of the really big ticket items, it's a shorter program than we've had in the past. There's fewer projects in this program, at least in the first 4 years, than there have been before. But that's what happens when you go do 11-mile asphalt jobs or 8-mile asphalt jobs. You spend a lot of the money in one project rather than spread out. So, or like I mentioned, the last bridge projects we did, they're all needed projects. So, anyway, that's the construction program. There is one other document with this. It's called the secondary road budget.
Actually, if you look at that, it shows at the top, it shows the receipts from the property tax levy. It's $3.38 and 16 7/8 cents.
Yes.
From the general county, and then it's got local option sales tax, and then breaks those down.
Yep. I'm not gonna go through that document. So this document has no purpose in our day-to-day lives. I mean, it literally is, the only purpose it has is it's a required document to turn into the DOT. It doesn't, I'm not sure I've ever once in a year had this document actually match up with our county budget. Because our county budget, we constantly are adjusting and moving and tweaking and everything else, but we have to submit this to the DOT. And they basically, it complies with the code, they go through, make sure there's nothing egregious that's out of whack, and then we go on. So I'm not gonna go through it. It is a great point by Tom, though. You were asking about levy rates and stuff like that. And it does have some stuff in there. So it's not made up, it's not fictional, but I'm just telling you that we don't live with that budget document. When we talk county budget stuff, is its own thing. And it's.
But those are the statutory limits.
Yeah. Yep. So, in fact, truth be told, there's a reasonable chance, not 100%, but those numbers might match up with that printout that I gave you for the revenues.
Yeah, okay.
So, I say might because there's been some time happened since that printout happened, but.
Yeah. So, property tax reform, isn't going to affect these numbers? Do you
It,
know?
so that's a very complicated question. In the long run, if it stays in place, it can impact these numbers. But we're working with the legislature to hopefully make sure, there are some counties, there's 11 counties that I'm aware of right now. And some of those 11 counties are right against their lower limit of what they contribute. So our board contributes 100% of what they can give. So when Tom talks about the 16 and 3/8 cents, I think it is.
7/8.
7/8. And then the $3 and 3/8 cents then, if I remember right. I get 100% of that, so they give me the maximum, they give our department the maximum they give. There are other counties, so the minimum is 75% of that. There are some counties that are, that's what they do. 75.00 whatever percent, they give the bare minimum to the road department. And that's their decision, they're elected officials, I have nothing good or bad about that. Where I'm going with this is, what your question hits on the purpose of the new law starts to work the maximum levy rate backwards if your valuations go up over 3%. What's being seen now, and it's an unintended consequence, so it's not gonna hit us this year. But there are some counties where, because that levy rate is going to come backwards, they will no longer be able to meet their 75%. If you can't hit the 75%, there's two things that happen. For the amount that you're under 75%, so anywhere from $1 to whatever it is, $100 to $1,000. That amount you lose from your transfer that you would normally get, and it gets divvied out to all 98 other counties. The other side is you lose the use of your farm to market account. So the goal of it was skin in the game. Be 75% or we're gonna hit you, we're gonna hit you hard.
And 75% really, if you have negative growth, is not 75%.
So,
70 or whatever.
so to answer your question is no, right now, it's not going to impact us. But I will tell you that right now, that law sunsets in 4 years. In 2029 it sunsets. Now, will they re-up it? That's all a guess for anybody else. In the long run, if we don't get some sort of a legislative change, which the County Engineers Association has already started working on behind the scenes, because the legislature never intended that. They never ever intended for road departments to be facing consequences that were already in the code because of a conflict between two code sections.
Okay.
So we're working on that. Doesn't mean we'll get what we're hoping for, but we're working on that. If something doesn't happen though, eventually what you just described will happen to Des Moines County, and it's going to happen to some other counties in the state. Just, we'll see how that all plays out. So yes, there is long-term impacts of that on us. Right now, the board's done some maneuvering to try to keep everything for this current year fine, and for us, we're also a county that's in a very solid financial position. And just in the big picture, I mean, we're not perfect, but we're better positioned than some others. So, I think the jury's still out on that. Hopefully, we can get some tweaks to that so that counties aren't facing those ramifications. So anyway, I'm not gonna get into the budget piece because it is what it is. We live budget here, and our budget that we're gonna do and you guys are gonna approve before April 30th is the important budget in our world. Unless there's questions, I'm gonna recommend approval of both the budget and the program.
Well, is there any public comment regarding the presentation of the
You got any? They're calling?
secondary roads budget?
No, I looked over the numbers.
Discussion of your program. Did
How much
you?
you Tracy?
No, I really appreciate the time you took to explain all this.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you.
problem.
I have not received anything in the auditor's office.
Email.
I haven't heard it, so
Okay, we
with
need-
that, I would make a recommendation that we approve the,
We need to close the public hearing
oh,
first.
we need to close the public hearing. So moved.
Second. Sarah?
Jim Carrey,
Yeah.
Shane Campbell,
Yeah.
Tom Broker.
Yes. Now,
I'm gonna send a picture and you might have in your email before I leave.
All right, thank you very much.
approve the budget and construction program.
I have moved that we approve the 2025 secondary road budget and the 5-year construction program.
Sarah?
Jim Carrey?
Yeah.
Shane Campbell?
Yep.
Ron Broker?
Yes.
And Brian, these road tours we take throughout the year, really want to thank you because it helps me and I'm sure it helps Shane and Tom to understand where you're at all the time on this. So,
Well, I appreciate that, but actually it requires you guys giving the time to go look at it, and that actually is far better for me, than for you, because the more you know, the more you can answer when somebody catches you out and about in the public and you know what's going on, cause that's far better than not knowing.
Oh, when they catch me out there, I give them either Tom or Shane's number.
Perfect.
They call these guys up there.
I write.
But that's great though, man, it is. I mean, I can't say enough. Thank Becky again for the color coding and all of that. It just
Oh.
makes it so much easier to read and find stuff, dude. It's phenomenal. I like it.
Becky and Devin, Becky does all the computer side of it, and it's priceless, cause it's all gotta be done, and I don't think I could do it. But credit to them, so.
Tracy, you'll have to take a road tour with us.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, let me know when you take one, I wouldn't mind going along,
Yeah,
so
you
you can some pictures and see what's what, so
One of your
marvelous.
predecessors, what was her name? Big Cardinal fan?
Oh.
What, my predecessor?
Well, I don't remember this